The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
What time is it?
I started to question myself if I was watching Lucha Underground and I had accidentally flipped over to Cinemax.
Not a whole lot of faces shown as far when it comes to Brenda, so
Yeah.
You're spot on there, buddy.
This is the house that AJ Styles built.
Like Nakamura, he's just such a great star. It doesn't matter what you do with him, people are going to cheer for him.
Did you feel the gloriousness? Did you feel it? Bobby Roode did his job.
This is insane how great they are.
Well, I think the authors of pain are young prodigies.
That's how good we are representing Bullet Club. This is what we do.
Super Kid Pate! Japan!
Hey everyone, it's Gary. That's right, I am in the Caribbean like promised, but you know what? That's okay. You will get a great show out of Paul and Sean this week. They're going to have such a great time talking about wrestling and getting you all informed about whatever happened this past week. And once again, I'm getting myself into trouble here and there. On the cruise ship, I've already found my way into the medical facility. Apparently channeling your inner Tozawa at the buffet going, ha, 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 when you see the food is not appropriate. I learned that now, so I've gotten past that point. So let's just hope and pray that Customs lets me through when I get back to the States. But anyway, you're not really here to listen about my problems and issues. I'm excited about this show. Let's get it started, guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, wrestling to the max.
And your hosts, Gary Vaughn, Sean Garmer, and Paul Leazar.
Hello and welcome to Wrestling to the Max. Damn it, now I just screwed this up. What episode are we on?
I believe we are on 268, 267, one of those numbers.
See, we're already missing Gary already.
267.
Okay, so this is the Wrestling to the Max episode 267, part 1. And of course, as you heard in the intro there, Gary is on his cruise that I guess is now going to be a yearly thing for him, which is good. He needs that week off to recharge and go spend time with the wife and family. So, yeah, this week will be no Gary, which we will miss him dearly. Hopefully you guys will as well. And Paul, unfortunately, we have to start off the show talking about tragedy with this horrible event that happened in Las Vegas. 59 people dead as of this recording and over 500 people injured. Sometimes I wake up and go, what kind of world are we living in?
You know, I hate to say world because it's not anybody else. Like, you don't hear about mass shootings in a lot of other countries. You always hear about mass shootings in America because we have a gun control problem and nobody ever wants to talk about it because terrible things will happen and they start blaming other stuff. In this case, they've started to blame hotel security as the problem for not catching him. And while that might have been a problem because he was found, his room had 18 guns and a whole crap ton of ammo in it. They make collapsible guns. They make smaller guns. It's probably not out of the realm of possibility that his bags look normal and nobody just checked them. But I don't know. This is a very large problem that America has and refuses to ever try to fix. And if Sandy Hook didn't fix it, as terrible as this is the most deadly mass shooting in America now. I don't know if we're ever going to fix this problem.
Yeah, it's gonna be a thing. And I think, ISIS was quick to claim responsibility, but who knows if they're just trying to mess with people at this point, or if they really are the ones that were involved. But just, I think, speak for both of us and Gary by saying that our hearts and condolences go out to all the people that were affected by this event in Las Vegas. It's really crappy because you're going for a country music festival. You're going for all the party things that you do in Las Vegas, and you have to walk away with a tragedy like that. It's awful.
Mm-hmm.
And then the sad news gets compounded by the fact that one of my favorite, he's definitely in my top 5 of favorite artists, and the band as well, Tom Petty, passing away today at 66. So many classics from this man, and then just the heartbreaker for me was the whole, he had just finished the tour. He was looking forward to not touring anymore and just being with his grandkids, and he doesn't even get to experience that.
Yeah, this really kind of kicked me in the teeth too. I heard about this driving home from doing a bunch of errands, and it kind of just took the wind out of my sails out of an already pretty crappy day. They make it worse with this news. And man, I don't think many people realize how many hits Tom Petty had is ridiculous. And two, I think he's such an influential musician, just because I think he was one of the first really popular guys to sort of cross genres. He had poppy rock stuff. He had this kind of soulful, almost country sound at times. Like, he's very, very different from, I think, a lot of acts at the time. And one of the most unique voices I think I've ever heard come out of a musician.
Oh yeah, and then just he also had some blues sound in there. He was also very successful as a solo act, and what also kept a lot of his guys from his band with him in the solo act too. He didn't just go off and leave them and then decide to come back later. So somebody that you can really just, for so many reasons, prove that he's a great musician through and through, and a class act as far as just how to be a part of a band and everything else. So I'm sure they had their rocky times and everything else, but for the most part, I really have never heard a bad thing about the guy, honestly. But yeah, we're going to transition this into talking about wrestling today. So let's do that here with some wrestling news.
It's time for wrestling news. Quick hits.
Well, Paul, what do you want to discuss first here, as for some reason my deal is not coming up here. So yeah, let's just start here with this. Could you think of a time with Bradley Cooper possibly being Vince McMahon?
Wow.
In the biopic? I mean, I don't know. Like, I just think of him as I know he's done non-comedy roles, right? He's done serious roles, but like, just I think of him as Rocket Raccoon and the guy from The Hangover and even Silver Linings Playbook, where he wasn't that serious. You know, just weird thinking of him as like, this guy could be the one that plays Vince McMahon.
I think he's in John Tucker Must Die too, right? Can't remember.
Right,
yeah. I like Bradley Cooper's work. I agree with you. I see him more in comedy roles, but I think people have been shown time and again that comedians, to me, usually have some of the best range as far as some other actors who mainly stick to drama or something like that. Looking at guys like Robin Williams and Jim Carrey and a lot of the, I think, bigger comedians who were known for that and then sort of transitioned into all these different roles that really showed off everything that they could do. I got no problem with it. I'm just going to say that if Vince McMahon had a hand in trying to pick Bradley Cooper to be him, I think he has a very high opinion of himself.
Well, he has a high opinion of himself. I mean, come on. This is Vince McMahon. It doesn't surprise me at all that he picked, a very, well-known actor to play him. Hey, look, if they're willing to fit the bill and he's willing to do it, I mean, it will certainly get me to pay attention. He was also in that, where he was the sniper in the war movie or whatever, which I can't remember the name of right now. The American Sniper?
Was that the one about the that's not the SEAL Team 6 movie.
He's the big war hero or whatever.
Yeah,
and
I forgot the guy's name.
I thought he did a really good job on that for looking at serious roles, but it's he will have to mix both, right? Because Vince McMahon is known as a jokey kind of guy, at least backstage, and everything else. So I'm kind of more interested in what story WWE is going to put into this for Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
Than who's going to play him necessarily, whatever. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who plays them. If you can see through the story from the word go, I don't know if that's going to matter so much.
I agree with you very much on that point too. I don't know necessarily who has written this script, but WWE Studios does have a hand in making this, obviously. So I think a lot of that's going to play into this. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of say on Vincent's part, I would assume. I can't get over Bradley Cooper. At any time throughout Vince McMahon's lifetime, he has never been anywhere close to looking like Bradley Cooper. It's going to bug me for a long time.
I will love to see the makeover that he gets, certainly, to see if he looks the part at all.
I'll just be scratching my head like that's not Vince, that's Bradley Cooper. Like,
oh man, Vince, you don't cease to surprise us at all. But you know, he still has to take the role too. So
obviously, yeah,
we'll see if he actually does it. I mean, this is a busy guy. So if they're in no rush to make this movie, then if they want to give him the time to say, hey, look, whenever you have time to do it, if you want to take it, then I don't see why he wouldn't say no. But it's just so weird.
Yeah, it's a really odd choice.
Well, speaking of, I guess, weird decisions, Robbie E. requested his release from Impact Wrestling. This is a guy that's been with Impact Wrestling for a long time, so...
One of the guys that they pushed pretty hard, too, right out of the gate, and now it's just sort of nothing.
Yeah, I mean, after the thing with the bromance and all that stuff, I kind of felt like he had a ceiling. He sort of reached it. I think he did a lot more than we expected, but... You know, it's kind of like when Crazy Steve left. I think he kind of sees the writing on the wall and knows that better get out, and I know I have some kind of a name. I can do something on the indies.
Robbie E. had pretty well established himself in the Northeast, too, before his time with TNA and Impact and all that. I wonder, too, if his lack of usage came from sort of old regime, right? Like... There's a lot of thought, and there's a lot of talk now too that Impact might be making some cuts, and obviously they're thinking about changing where they tape their TV show every week to get out of Universal to, I guess, fully, transform the promotion and try to give it a different look and all that. But I can't help but wonder if that maybe has something to do with his lack of use and him just finally being like, all right, well, better get while the getting is good,
Yeah, could be that. I think definitely you're right about them making cuts to some of the older stars that they might say, okay, these guys have kind of passed their sell-by date. I'm looking at a James Storm as well. Just maybe he tries to make one last stitch run in NXT. I know that's not going to be your cup of tea, but I wouldn't blame him if he tries, just because he did get a following. You know, it seems like every TNA guy that goes over there seems to get something out of that crowd. I don't know that Robbie E would, but I could see Robbie E being a trainer or something if he wanted to, if he felt like, you know, he needed something besides doing indies.
I could see that too. I mean, he certainly is in phenomenal shape, and he's had a lot of ring time as well. So I wouldn't be shocked. He's certainly shown that he can be pretty versatile too, right? Singles wrestler. He's great as a tag guy too.
Yeah, a lot to be able to show people. He's not too bad on the microphone either. So there's things that are good about Robbie that he could transition into a teaching role if he wanted to. So, you know, you guys talked about it. It seems like the whole world's talked about it, this deal with the WWE and the cease and desist letter to the Young Bucks about using Too Sweet and Suck It and things because of being involved with DX. Well, the Young Bucks decided, you know what, we're just going to create a cease and desist shirt instead. And very much in Young Bucks fashion, it is #1 on Pro Wrestling Tees in about 40 minutes.
This is just like the most Young Bucks thing I think I've ever heard in my life. Turn the bad news into some good news, turn it into a t-shirt, make a crap ton of money. Their day goes on. Like, other than maybe just pissing off WWE more to where we may never ever see the Young Bucks in the E, which I'm actually pretty okay with. I don't know if this is really newsworthy, other than I just really want to talk about it because I found this hilarious.
No, it is pretty funny. Like, it's just the fact that it's amazing these guys, the role that they're on, you think they're going to hit some kind of bad turn and they turn it into a positive. I mean, it's just amazing the role that they've been on for a long time now. It doesn't seem to have an end point. It keeps getting bigger and bigger for them. And you get to make a shirt that just takes a stab right at WWE sending them letters. And, of course, people are going to buy it, right? Because there's also that whole thing of, oh, yeah, we also get to tell WWE, you know, to F off as well. So, smart by them.
Absolutely nothing like cashing in on F the establishment stuff. It'll never cease to not make money.
Oh, those Young Bucks. So shrewd businessmen they are.
Crushing it.
Seriously, like, there should be awards for, you know, businessmen of the year in wrestling or something, and the Young Bucks should just automatically get that one every year because they rule the world that way. Speaking of the Young Bucks, they are, of course, in ROH, and ROH has another Global Wars Tour stop, and it's in Chicago. It's going to be on iPay-per-view through their website. The other stops, which they usually make several in one go, are going to be free for ringside members, so that's cool. If you're part of the ringside, it only costs $7.99, which I think will be worth it for that month. If you want to watch the other ones, there'll be some good matches on there. And, of course, the Chicago show is where Kenny Omega is defending the U.S. title against Yoshihashi. So, Kenny Omega in a match, it's like automatically like 4 stars already, and then Yoshihashi in there. It's going to be really good because Yoshihashi brings his game most of the time. So
yeah,
I
can already hear people breaking out their $20 right now to go watch this because that's how much the iPay-per-view costs. But the streaming thing for the ringside members is a really neat deal. They need to get more value out of that, especially because you can buy it for a year's worth at a time for $100 a piece, and you don't get a ton of use out of it other than if they happen to do a live show in your area, you get early, ticket stuff and you get discounts on merch. But I think this is a really great way to use that, and I also wouldn't be shocked if a lot of this is being streamed through New Japan World as well. So if you pay for that, you might get these as well.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. I think I saw that they just added some of the Death Before Dishonor stuff when I was on the New Japan World today. So they're adding it pretty quickly. So even then, you're still paying somebody money,
Yeah.
and hopefully you get to watch it soon. I just think this is a really good deal. Like you said, I've always thought that they needed to use the ringside thing for more than just, hey, you get access to all of our TV we've ever done as far as being ROH TV, and that's all well and good. Most people aren't going to go back and watch those. And then same thing with, which I think it's cool, some of the on-demand stuff that they do offer of the old shows, but there's still not enough of that. And if there's, I will say this again, look, if frickin' TNA is now making a streaming service, come on, Sinclair.
Yeah.
Let's do it. You guys
quit
have
buying
a way
TV
better
stations
library.
and figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, you have a way better library than TNA does. If there's another company that could support having that, it's them. Like,
absolutely.
Get it together already. Something that we should add to the story as well is that What Culture have announced that they're rebranding themselves Defiant Wrestling. The thing is, there's already a Defiant Wrestling that exists. So, What Culture, maybe you need to do a little bit of research before you decide to do that. Hey, there's a thing called Cage Match. You can look it up, and you can find out all the names of all the wrestling companies that exist and make sure that there's not a company named that. But nevertheless, they are doing that as of now. They've crowned a new champion, Marty Scurll, and Wade Barrett is going to be their GM starting December 4th, which is exactly almost 2 months from now. So that's cool. It's certainly good news.
Yeah, this is a big turn since they've had a split with a lot of the top business people as far as what Culture Pro was and what's happening with all those guys, and a lot of them have left, so there's a big change. They're going to change everything. I mean, there are plenty of wrestling promotions that share the same name a lot of the times. It's just they're not usually on a scale like What Culture where they have a lot of eyes on them and they have easy access to find them. So, I mean, maybe that makes them the more renowned Defiant Wrestling already because I'm not familiar with the other one. But, it's kind of neat. It certainly does feel like stuff is happening over there. I think Wade Barrett's a pretty nice get for him because I don't know if he'll be ready to go back to WWE anytime soon. So getting involved in a scene that is already pretty hot with a guy who has a big name, I think it's a great way to get off to the right foot.
Oh, certainly, and I think for Wade Barrett, this is an easy way to dip your toe back into wrestling without having to commit to wrestling itself in the ring, and using your name to help someone else, and also being involved in the UK and not having to go too far from there either. So, I think this is a win-win for everybody involved. I think certainly, if you're What Culture, like, why would you say no to that? And as long as the Defiant Wrestling thing works out, which I can understand if you're in any promotion that's been called that for years, which I saw it on Twitter. I can't remember the Twitter handle at this point. I don't blame you for being mad because you've had that name. Be angry about it. But what do you think about Marty Scurll being the champ?
I mean, it's a pretty easy way to get a lot of name value internationally since Marty Scurll is basically a world warrior at this point where he'll wrestle anywhere they have dirt. So I got no problem with it. It's somebody who is a proven staple and will draw in England, so it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, certainly. It's a guy that's gonna draw big attention. He's a big star in Bullet Club and everything. So, we'll even get to talk about him later when we talk about ROH. So that's got to mention him several times on the show. That's always a nice thing. Mentioning Mr. Scurll and talking about mentioning this guy. It seems like we can't go too many shows without mentioning the name Billy Corgan. Of course, he's now officially taking control of the NWA, and he has a 20-year plan to rebuild this company. Well, not to be morbid, but if some of us are still alive at that point to witness this rebranding, like, I mean, I will say that it's smart. Like, build digital content, which is the way that almost all content is going at this point, around names and develop talent. Of course, the NWA is going to have a name. They have a name brand, but let's be honest. I mean,
yeah, it's not a good one.
it's one that is severely nowhere near what it was, and you're competing with not only WWE and that big deal with Performance Center. You're competing with Ring of Honor, and they have a great talent system. New Japan continues to get people. I'm sure you can grab people off the indies and stuff like that, like what Impact does, and get some and try to build some of these names. But it's going to be a lot for him to deal with, and I guess a 20-year plan is what it really might take.
Yeah.
He also wants to build a modern-day studio wrestling show using the old Georgia Championship Wrestling as inspiration.
This all sounds really nice, and 20-year plan I think is being very realistic for Mr. Corgan and how he wants to see all this, because at least now you realize he knows that NWA is sort of damaged goods. It's going to take a long time to rebuild it, and he's not going into this thinking it's going to be easy, which I greatly appreciate that. And this plan makes sense, right? Build names, build digital content around those names, set up something that you can make money off of it, and off you go, and try to figure out what you want to present as you go on, based on who takes off, who doesn't, whatever. I really like the idea of doing a studio show as well, because it's a nice way to tie into roots that the company has had over a long period of time. And there is a proven success story currently going with Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, who does the same thing. They have a studio wrestling show that they have carved out a pretty nice niche for themselves out there in California, and it's grown obviously as they've gotten the CW deal recently, and it's an easy model, I think, to pull off that doesn't really require a whole lot of long-term investment, right? It might require a lot up front to set up the studio and everything, but once you have the TV deal and everything like that, it's basically just getting guys to show up after that.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned Championship Hollywood. There's that thing called Fight TV that he can easily get them sort of building that digital content through there. Get yourself seen, even on the sort of, as you barely got things going, if you got some names and you're starting to build a roster and you think that you have enough to build a TV show, you can start from there. And if you want to go bigger picture, you can. But it's already a big wrestling fan base. There's a lot of people that will watch almost anything that's on there. So he has that built in for him too if he wants to go that route.
Yeah, I completely agree with all that.
Like you said, this all sounds good. Let's see if it actually comes to fruition, right? Because I like the idea of using Georgia Championship Wrestling as an inspiration. Can you pull that off now? That's another thing entirely. And finally, Master Public has announced Lucha Libre Expedition is going to take place next year over Labor Day weekend. It's called Expo Lucha, and it's going to happen August 31st and September 1st in Las Vegas, Nevada, at the Orleans Arena, which seats almost 10,000 people. And they're going to run 6 shows over 2 days with over 100 Lucha Libre names attached to this. Rey Mysterio, Psicosis, Rey Fenix, Blue Demon Jr., Penta 0M, Conan, LA Park, Juventud Guerrera, John Hennigan, of course, Johnny Mundo, for those who don't know his real name, Damien 66, Bestia 666, Super Astro Taya, Solar, Maestro, Little Cholo, Mr. Cisco, of course, have all been announced so far. So we're talking about 11 months ahead of time here.
Mm-hmm.
They're announcing something that's pretty cool.
I like the size and scope of this is pretty insane for as big as wrestling kind of is right now, I guess, amongst the hardcore, because there's so many different ways to watch it. This is a pretty big gamble, right? The Orleans isn't small. I'm pretty sure it's the same place where GFW taped their Amped show, if I remember correctly. And there's a lot of big names involved if you're plugged into the Lucha Libre scene and all that here. It looks like you have the Crash and AAA involvement so far, and this is all. I mean, it's a really neat deal that I think just shows you, I think, how almost worldwide wrestling has come to be in this day and age, right? I mean, even 10 years ago, I don't know if this would have flown so well.
No, it wouldn't have, but it's cool that we were in 2017, and these things can happen. So I'm excited to see these things happening, and that it doesn't just have to happen around WrestleMania weekend, right? It can happen at other times of the year. That's a cool thing, and to be in Las Vegas, that's all things considered with what happened recently, not a kind of not a great thing to be talking about wrestling right now when that just happened, but Las Vegas usually is just bustling with so much things happening. It's cool that wrestling can be involved in that too. I think that's going to do it for the news here. So we'll be back talking some Ring of Honor TV in just a few seconds. All right, Paul.
All right, so Ring of Honor opens up this week with a three-way tag match as War Machine takes on Coast to Coast and the Tempura Boys. Tornado rules, and they leap off with a big brawl. And the thing that I think was the most interesting to me about this is that even though War Machine is basically head and shoulders above both teams, and then not just in stature, or not just in height, but in stature and sort of name value, they really let this be an open match. All the teams got in a lot of great stuff. I thought Coast to Coast and the Tempura Boys maybe looked the best they've had in their entire tenure with Ring of Honor, before War Machine finally decides to just kill show to end this. And then afterwards they get on the microphone and talk about how Ring of Honor hasn't really given them a straight-up 2-on-2 rematch for the tag team title since they were screwed out of them by the Young Bucks. And Ray Rowe is quite upset and says that they're going to start showing their dark side more, and then you have Hanson get on, sort of send it home, saying they've dominated the world, and now it's time to show Ring of Honor what they want in the best way possible.
Yeah, I really like that promo at the end, just kind of stating, hey, look, we have beaten everybody you put in our path. Why the hell have we not gotten our title shot? And you definitely can't say that they don't deserve it. I mean, they've done everything they're supposed to do, and Ring of Honor's not doing their job right now. The match was actually, to me, this was the best match on the show, easily. This was really, really fun. Tempura Boys got to do some really cool tag moves. Everybody did in this match. War Machine was just on fire with some of the tag moves they were doing. It's insane. That I forgot what Hanson does, but then to turn it into a German or whatever, it's like a splash in a German or something like that. That was really cool.
It's like a springboard lariat, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
It's like they're just so good. Of course, it comes with so many years working together and everything, but it's just how they can pull some of the moves that they do off, and they do it so smoothly, is just insane to me. And you forget how big these guys are too. They move around like they're the size of the Tempura Boys, really. So that's still just, it doesn't matter how many times you see it, it's still really awesome. And Show and Yo just keep improving, and that's nice to see. I'd never heard of the Coast to Coast team until I watched this episode, so I thought they looked good, but it was definitely about the other two teams more.
Absolutely, yeah. And Shaheem Ali and LSG are two guys that they've been pushing, I think, pretty steadily, right? I mean, they've had matches, I think, with all the big teams, and they haven't really won any of them yet. But every time they go out there, I think they look really good for somebody's who haven't really been around wrestling all that long. I think they've only been around for a couple years, so and they're still sort of finding their way as a team and all that. And I thought this was a great step forward for them.
Yeah, definitely worth watching this match if you go back and watch this show.
Absolutely. We get a Flip Gordon highlight package, which basically just shows him living up to his name. He jumps and flips around a lot, in case you haven't seen him yet. And then he takes on Corey Hollis here, which Flip Gordon gets the victory for after the Kinder Surprise, which is basically a disaster kick for all intents and purposes, just off the top rope and a side kick more. And then a knee spring 450, which he overshoots, and poor Corey eats his knees right into his chest. It looked very painful, and I don't think I would have kicked out either.
Yeah, I don't think I would have either. This just felt like it took forever.
Yeah.
I thought Corey Hollis looked good. He kind of did a lot of the groundwork and was trying. You're telling the story of you're trying to ground Flip Gordon so he can't do his flying stuff and whatever. And I thought that was well done. Just took way too long to get to the go home segment, which same thing will happen later when we have just a segment that feels like it goes too long too, just because they needed to pad out the show. Understandable with this show being an hour, and sometimes you don't. You only have plans for like two of these matches to happen, and you got to put something in the middle. But yeah, this was fine, but not anything to write home about.
Yeah, I think fine is about what covers it. This is super, super long, and it didn't really need to be. I think you shave off 3 or 4 minutes. You sort of shorten up the heat there for Hollis to get, and then have Flip send it home. And I understand that this is Flip's first victory in Ring of Honor, and they wanted to show that he actually earned it and all that. But this would have been much better served by shaving some time.
Yeah, could have given an extra couple minutes to the main event.
Absolutely. We get a promo, speaking of the main event, from Kazarian afterwards, who talks about how he went through 19 men to get his shot at the championship, which he's talking about the Honor Rumble from last week. And he wants to win it basically to piss off everybody surrounding Ring of Honor, from the higher-ups to the fans to the wrestlers to everything, since the addiction is still on this crusade to ruin everything about Ring of Honor. And then we get this, something I wish they would do more often, and that is a Women of Honor update where they talk about Mandy Leon participating even in Stardom's 5-star Grand Prix, which she actually did very well in as far as points. I haven't seen any of the matches yet, but I've never been a huge fan of hers. And then they hype up some recent standouts, like they recently signed Brandy Rhodes, obviously, and Stella Gray is a big prospect for him coming out of the ROH dojo. And then they get to highlight the main feud going, which is Kelly Klein and Deonna Purrazzo, and the recently involved Karen Q, all sort of getting involved and all that. And if you follow the scene, you know all this. If you don't, though, and you're trying to get more YouTube views or whatever your ROH is going for here with these ladies in this division, this helps to do, and I wish they would do it more.
I'd agree with you. Yeah, I mean, if you're not going to integrate the women into the main show, which I still contend, I know that you have Shimmer and Shine and all these other women's only promotions, and of course they're highlighting the major women's only promotion that's in Japan and Stardom. You can survive that way, but I feel like if you want to be in that parallel of saying you're a major American promotion, we are used to the women being on the same show as the men and getting that time, and then you haven't learned how to fluctuate that time. I get that you only have an hour, and it's hard to be able to do that, but NXT does it as well. So I feel like this is great, and it's great that they have their thing on YouTube, but like doing these, like whatever they are, quarterly shows that they get, or every other month show that they get on Ring of Honor TV, it's not enough for them. They need more. And if they have one match on Ring, maybe not every week, but like at least one in a set of tapings or two in a set of tapings wouldn't be bad for them. But if you're gonna do it this way, this is good. Lets you know what's going on. Lets you know the main feud, which seemed very interesting in the way they're doing this. And yeah, I think you're kind of interested in the three main women that are involved here after you watch it. So I feel like it did its job.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't even think they get once a quarter sometimes as far as Women of Honor shows. So definitely probably should up the amount of those you're doing as well. But that just leaves us with our main event of Cody defending the championship against Frankie Kazarian. Lots of distractions down the stretch. You have Daniels come down. You have Marty Scurll come down. We get a very minor ref bump that apparently Todd Sinclair Supermaned up for, just basically shakes off to get right back to business. Eventually, this all leads to Cody hitting Crossroads after some near finishes from Kaz and puts it away. Up until all of that, I thought the work was really, really good. Maybe on the verge of being one of Cody's better matches that we've gotten to see in Ring of Honor before you get all the shenanigans. And there are times where I'm looking at this, and Cody's obviously being booked as the babyface here because we're still in his hometown of Atlanta. Kazarian is obviously very much a heel with the whole addiction thing. Cody is a much better face, in my opinion. And if it would shave away all the BS so we could actually just see Cody try to work as a main eventer in a work rate first promotion, because it's very much what Ring of Honor is, I feel like we would get a much fairer shake and a better opportunity to actually see what he brings to the ring instead of having to worry about feeding into the aura of the Bullet Club and all the run-ins and stuff like that. And on the flip side of that, if they are going to have him do this, why couldn't it be the Bucks that do the run-in here to get some revenge for the addiction costing the titles?
I think, as you point out, it's the fact that they might have been worried about that this is taped before Death Before Dishonor, and so something might conflict there. So that would be my thought too, concurring with yours. But I agree with you that the whole match I'm sitting there going, okay, I'm waiting for Christopher Daniels to come out. I'm sure somebody from the Bullet Club's going to come out. I couldn't tell it was Marty at first. It took me a little bit, but then finally, I think once they said his name, I was like, oh, because I kind of thought it was Chase Owens for a while. So sometimes these guys kind of run together, and I'm going to be honest, they have so many of them at some points. So, that's the thing, right? Like when you have these factions, they feel like it's arbitrary to sort of have this thing where you can't have Cody be too much of a face because, he's still in the Bullet Club, so you got to have a little bit of that there. And people are going to still boo Kaz because they love Bullet Club, and that's fine. I think it works. But I agree with you. Like, up until then, they have been working a really good match. Kaz almost got the win, and Cody kicks out, and he's about ready to start the comeback, and then, Christian Daniels gets involved, and we get that whole mess to get to the end where it's like, okay, now I kind of know. First of all, they gave this like 10 minutes, so this is not going to have the time to really stand out, but for the little time that they got before the shenanigans, it was good.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. That's going to do it for Ring of Honor this week, but it's a pretty solid show all the way around. I would say it's definitely worth checking out for sure.
Yeah, and again, it's like only 50 minutes, so it doesn't take too long, and it goes by quick, So you can watch it on that Chromecast, on the phone, and even on Xbox One now. Apparently, it kept telling me to want to go stream it on that, but yeah, so. That's going to be the end of our show here. Again, we are missing Gary for the week. So you heard Harry and Paul on the Raw review. If you haven't, go check that out for sure. And SmackDown is going to be changing now. At least Harry has a new partner. I'm really busy and also need to spend more time with the kiddo and everything. So Harry's going to be the host of that show now, and he has his own co-host, and you'll get to hear them for the first time together on the SmackDown and 205 live shows on Tuesday. Of course, we'll be back here on Thursday with two big previews for the King of Pro Wrestling show from New Japan, and of course WWE Hell in a Cell 2017. So two big shows to look forward to happening on Sunday night and then Monday morning here in the States for the New Japan show. So things to look forward to, and of course the Impact Wrestling is Ultima Lucha still happening? Is that done now?
No, we still got 3 more episodes. Ultima Lucha, lots of great stuff still to look forward to from there.
Sweet. Yeah, I still got to catch up on that because I saw some of the matches. I was like, oh, wow, got to watch this. So we'll definitely be all caught up on that and get to talk about the latest shows. And hopefully you'll join us. And if you've been enjoying what you heard here, of course, you can hit that subscribe button on the Wrestling Till the Max and get all of our shows that we do, all the review shows, all of the regular episodes. Of course, we'll have a review show for the after the pay-per-view as well, after the Hell in a Cell event. And of course, if you subscribe to WTF Network, you'll also get the Wrestling Unwrapped Reacts Hell in a Cell review too. So you'll get double your money for that one. So make sure you check them out. Make sure you check out Running Wild had a new show, and everything else that's part of the network, the other stuff that's not wrestling related. So, and of course, WTNet.com. Can't forget that. That's where you post the podcasts and some other written things. Of course, we'll have our roundtable for both those shows. And our partnership with Forum Mania is always great. Always appreciate those guys. So until we see you again on the Thursday night, Friday morning edition for part 2. Later, everybody.
Have a good one, guys.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.